Chris Philp, what would you say to Dominic Raab?
Good morning. Well, I would say, as Dominic suggested, we should back the Prime Minister. She was re-elected, as you said, or confirmed by 63% of the parliamentary party. We need to unite behind her and make sure we deliver Brexit in a way that honours the referendum result, but also keeps trade flowing. She said in the 1922 committee meeting last night very clearly that she would be obtaining legally binding measures which address the concerns about getting stuck in the Irish backstop, and I imagine that as we speak, that is exactly what she's negotiating. And if she can bring that back, and she said she would, then I think the withdrawal agreement will be in a much happier place than it was a few days ago.
Did you back her, and would you back her in a vote on the meaningful vote as things stand?
So I did vote for the Prime Minister because I think now is not the time to detonate a leadership contest. We need to focus on delivering Brexit for the country. In terms of the meaningful vote, well, let's wait and see the detail of what's brought back. But if she, as she said she would, if she's able to deliver the legally binding solution to the backstop, then yes, I would expect to be voting for it.
And do you think there would be enough of your colleagues to get her deal through?
Well, I think it's very hard to say without knowing exactly what's in the deal. Clearly, it was very challenging last week, which is why the vote got cancelled. But I would hope that if she gets the legally binding solution that was promised, then I would think Parliament will unite behind that, because that would be the responsible thing to do. Clearly, the opposition parties, in particular Labour, simply want to cause chaos in the hope that they will somehow benefit from that. That is deeply irresponsible. And I think we should all be clear about the mischief and the mayhem which Jeremy Corbyn is trying to create for his own personal political advantage.
But at the moment, it is Conservative rebels who hold the key to the mayhem by potentially voting down the Prime Minister. What do you think would happen if, when it's brought back, her version of Brexit is rejected by Parliament thanks to Tory rebels? What happens then?
Well, I mean, you're engaging in that favourite game of speculation. You know, I hope and expect the Prime Minister will be able to negotiate legally binding improvements to the withdrawal agreement that will deliver for the country. Look, if the vote is lost, I mean, I can't predict what's going to happen. It's going to be very uncertain. The outcomes range from, you know, a second referendum at one extreme to a no-deal exit at the other. This Norway option is being proposed, which would be a terrible option because it entails all of the obligations of being in the European Union, giving them the money, free movement, taking the rules, effectively ECJ jurisdiction via the EFTA court, with absolutely no say. That would be a terrible option. But I can't predict what would happen. What I hope and expect will happen is that she'll manage to negotiate a good deal for the country and will then unite behind it, just as we united behind her last night.
The problem, though, is that people who would like a second referendum and people who would like a hard Brexit, at the moment, they seem to think it's worth playing for that by blocking the Prime Minister's efforts.
Well, I think that is quite a dangerous game to play. You know, people who want to try and engineer a different outcome can't be certain they're going to win. You've got some people who want to vote against the deal because they want to have a second referendum. Others want to vote against it because they think they can have a no-deal exit. Well, one of those two groups is going to end up being very sorely disappointed. So I think if we can improve this deal, as the Prime Minister is trying to do, then that will be the right way forward. It'll deliver on the referendum. We will be leaving the European Union, getting back control of our borders, getting back control of the money, ending the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, coming out of the common fisheries policy, the common agricultural policy. It does all of those things. And if we can fix this backstop problem, I think it'll be a well-constructed arrangement. So I hope that is what she's able to negotiate. And I think going to Brussels with the ringing endorsement of the parliamentary party puts her in a very strong negotiating position.
How important do you think was that statement that she doesn't expect to lead the Conservative Party into the next election? That makes that ringing endorsement rather backhanded, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, look, the Prime Minister chose to make that commitment. Obviously, the last election in 2017, I think it's fair to say, didn't go entirely according to plan. You know, she chose to say that. That was up to her. I'm not sure how influential it was. I think the main point is that the parliamentary party wanted to unite behind a sensible solution, and she laid out a sensible way forward, which involved a legally binding change to sort out the backstop problem. And I think colleagues, the main thing is colleagues didn't want to have a sort of divisive leadership contest at an important moment in our national history. It'd be self-indulgent. What we need to do in Parliament and what ministers in the government need to do is focus on delivering for the British people, and fighting each other is not the way to do that. So we've had the vote, and Jacob and everyone who I like and admire and respect, I think should fall into line behind the Prime Minister. I'm sure they'll have comments on the withdrawal agreement, and we can debate those respectfully. But what we now need, and what the country requires, is unity of purpose at this great moment in our national history.
Chris Philp, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Westminster.